Once upon a time. That's how stories start, right? Once upon a time, there was a lawyer or a cop or a doctor or a prince who fought dragons. But how about once upon a time there was a solar installer? Think that sounds funny? Well, why the hell not a solar installer? There are already 3 million solar installations in the US, and there are even more around the world. I'll bet you there are a lot of fun true stories about those installs, and I bet you there are stories about how installing solar has changed people's lives, positively or negatively. But we can't interview 3 million people, and even if we did, let's face it, a lot of those stories would be boring. I mean, in real life, most doctor visits are just checkups. They're not medical mysteries. For lawyers, murder trials don't happen every day. Mostly, lawyers are just pushing paperwork and yelling at each other over the phone. And as for dragon stories, well, in real life, there are no exciting or boring dragon stories because there are no Game of Dragons. In short, to keep things interesting, writers make shit up. So that's what we're going to do here at Probably True Solar Stories. Every episode, you're going to hear a solar story that's probably true. That is, it's going to be a story that shows how solar energy is already becoming legendary. Yes, legendary. Solar is already an interesting part of people's daily lives. We just haven't heard the stories yet. So we're going to tell some that we think might have happened, could have happened, shouldn't have happened but did. We're also going to tell those urban legendary stories. And by the way, not all of these stories are going to be positive. Just like any industry, we can have our bad apples and we can have our bad customers. Energy can also be political, it can be sexy, and it can be funny. And since we're telling probably true solar stories, we're not going to limit ourselves to reality. No. In this first season, anything goes. If you tune into season 1, these are the kind of stories you're going to hear. In our first 2 episodes, I'm going to tell you a 2-part solar panel heist story. I love heist stories. In this one, a desperate utility solar developer and a professional thief team up to steal several truckloads of solar panels. And just like any heist story, it does not go as planned. In episode 3, we jump to the year 2040 when door-to-door solar marketing and installation is handled by a solar sales bot. And it knows way too much about the homeowners that it's trying to sell to. In episode 4, we come back to the present. We tell the probably true solar story about a couple that has just gone solar. They love it, but the problem is that they have a serious pigeon problem. In the next episode, we tell the probably true solar story of an old lady who insists on going solar and the honest salesperson who insists that she can't. Next up, we have a neighborhood that starts and finishes a solar war. There's no violence, but people's egos do get wounded. Then around Halloween time, I'm not sure which story I'm going to write first. I'm leaning towards the haunted solar house story. But on the more humorous side, I've also started writing a story about a Texas vampire who's sick and tired of waking up to frequent Texas rolling blackouts. He gets a nighttime visit from a solar salesperson who's just had 3 slices of garlic pizza. And if that doesn't give you a taste, let me tell you that I have over 150 one-liner story ideas. There's the solar superhero story. There's the solar install story from a dog or a cat's perspective. There's the solar panel recycling story. There's the making love on a solar panel story. There's the murder by solar panel story. There's the solar-powered clothing story. There's the what if a solar installer ran for president story. And no, we're not going to stay away from politics. Energy, even clean energy, is political. Ask anyone who's ever been to a school board or a zoning board meeting. I also like fairy tales, so don't be surprised when 3 little pigs go solar. Or what about when Winnie the Pooh goes solar and his solar installer shows up and it's Tigger? I'm not sure what I'm going to do for Valentine's Day, but you can be sure it's going to be some kind of solar love story. As for Christmas, Easter, and July 4th, I have some ideas, but I'll save those for another time. Clearly, anything goes with probably true solar stories. Along the way, you might also learn something about the solar industry or going solar, but that's not why we're here. My main goal is for people to start noticing how solar energy is actually part of our culture and changing our lives. We might also feature some true stories and essays every now and then, but only when they're fun and interesting. Mostly the stories will be fictional. And who's making this stuff up? Well, that would be me. My name is Tor Valenza, but a lot of people know me in the solar industry as Solar Fred, which is my Twitter handle. Perhaps not surprisingly, my day job is solar PR and communications. But before I started calling myself Solar Fred, I was actually a film and TV writer working with some big Hollywood studios, directors, and producers. Sadly, none of my movie scripts ever got made because, well, that's a long story. But I did get to write for TV, namely for Stargate SG-1, Dharma and Greg, and The Dead Zone. So I have written some fictional stories before, but this is my first time writing fictional solar stories. What else? Well, if you love live readings, good. My plan is to eventually have live readings on Zoom and at conferences and at events. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and sign up to our email list at probablytruesolar.com. Then you'll be the first to know about new episodes and upcoming events. So, solar people, what's your solar story? You can hear all of mine at probablytruesolar.com and your favorite podcast streaming service. Subscribe, like, and share. Probably True Solar Stories is written and produced by yours truly, Tor Solar Fred Valenza. Follow me on Twitter at SolarFred or at ProbablyTrueSolar. Hope you're going to like episode 1. It's called The Solar Heist, or How I Got Into the Solar Business, Part 1. Probably True Solar Stories is a production of Unthinking Solar, PR and Communications. Be bold for solar. Stand out and educate. See you next time.